So guys, I want to go ahead and get started because we've got a 30-minute interview, and then at the end of it, we can talk about it a little bit and we can go through it. So today what we have is Steve did an interview with Don Bunting. It's about 28, 29 minutes talking about what Don's doing in the greater New York City area. He's currently, I think, in New Jersey, which is right over the river. So he's still right there in New York City. Has some really good information. So that'll go for about 28, 30 minutes. And then we can discuss. I have a couple slides just to kind of summarize it a little bit if we want to go through those, or if y'all just want to give feedback on what he has to say. So I'm going to just start it up and we'll watch it real quick. Let me share again for the. Okay, for those online, can y'all see Don?
Yes.
Okay, and then if you can't hear, let me know, but otherwise, here we go.
Well, good morning, and we're thrilled to have Don Bunting with us today. I've known Don and Cammie for a long time and have known of his work, and I'm excited that he can share some things with us today. Don, thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here. I'm glad to be a part. Hope I can add something useful.
Oh, I know you will, Don. Well, let's start with maybe you giving a little background on your life and your preaching career type of thing. Just give us a little background about yourself.
Okay. Well, may know I grew up in a preacher's family. My dad's a preacher, and Tom Bunting is now deceased. But so I grew up in the church and in the work, very much closely connected to it. And since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be like my dad. So preaching is what I chose, and really followed through. Went to Florida College, studied Bible, and after 3 years, I started working in Charleston, West Virginia, and preached there for 3 years. A nice, peaceful situation where I got 3 years worth of peace and quiet. There's not much going on, so I could just study lessons and write bulletin articles and just start to learn and grow. From there, we went to Washington, New Jersey, which my uncle recommended as an excellent evangelistic opportunity. And that's where I really started to learn about reaching people who were not Christians, because that was a wide open field there. We were there for 6 years before we went to Norway. And since I'd lived there as a kid and knew the language, the invitation to preach there laid heavy on our hearts. So we went to Norway for 4 years. And of course there, that was certainly an evangelistic work there, not much of a church, but mostly just trying to reach people. And after that, we came back to Moundsville, West Virginia for 3 years, and then spent 9 years in Conyers, Georgia, a good church there. And from there, we came to New York City. And now I've lived in New York City longer than anywhere in my life. And we were there 16 years. But 1 year ago, we moved to Union City, New Jersey. So we're still in the metro area. We can see the Empire State Building from our house, but we're across the river in New Jersey now. And so that's kind of the stopping points in our life.
Where are you doing most of your work now? Is it in Union City or is it in New York City?
Well, the church that I work with and where I do preaching and teaching as I take my turn is in New York City, in West Harlem, the West Harlem congregation. Gardner Hall is there, Roger Polanco is there, and Tim Bunting, my son, is there. And we landed there after resigning from the Upper West Manhattan work, having moved to New Jersey is really with the intention of starting a work here. And so really, even right now, we are on the verge. Last week was our first midweek service here. And we're going to more and more be focused in our work here, starting a new congregation in New Jersey.
All right. So you spent a lot of time in an urban setting. I've really been trying to interview preachers that have had experience in an urban setting, because that's where we are here, and try to get some background of what you've done during that time. Kind of describe the nature of your work when you were in New York City during that time.
All right. Took a little while just to kind of get the feel of where I was and what to do. Certainly a lot of the work is the same as you think about ministering in a congregation and edifying and keeping up with people. But it became apparent that evangelism really needed to take a front seat in my efforts. And in a city, of 9 million, how do you reach? There were no other conservative congregations in Manhattan, and not really much faithful churches in New York City as a whole. So I really felt like we needed to make ourselves available to the whole city as much as we could. So how do you do that? You could door knock every day of your life for 40 years. And I'm not sure how many you actually get, but it's not anywhere near 9 million. You just touching such a small segment. So the church fortunately had a large amount of money, just from a cumulative of contributions, but only paying rent and not really using it. I said, we either need to use this money to support our preacher, or we need to start spending it on evangelism and trying to reach people in the city, and which I recommended number 2, because you spend it all on the evangelist and then he's got to start raising his support all over again. But if we can start reaching people, then that's a better plan for long term. So we started by advertising in the local commuter newspaper, and we were spending about $3,000 a month on an ad that was maybe 2 columns wide on a newspaper, 2 columns wide, about 5 inches long. And we used the same format and look and color scheme and everything every time it appeared, so that people would get used to seeing it. Started with a question, had about a 2 or 3 sentence answer to that spiritual question, and then how to contact us, where we were. And I started getting phone calls. I averaged 30 phone calls a month. People saying, well, tell me about your Bible classes. And then and the first calls I got, I didn't have any Bible classes. So I made them up. I said, well, on Thursday night, I'm going to be teaching, and I filled in, I can't remember what my first topic was. I'm going to be teaching Matthew Thursday night down here at this open public space. You can join me at 7:00. I didn't do that on the first call because I didn't think that quick. But after about 3 calls like that, I realized I had to provide a class. And then people started coming. And so out of 30 calls, 30 new contacts a month, I would get about 15 of them that would actually come to the class. I would get about 6 or 8 of them that would finish the study. And about 4 of them would keep studying with me. And so during that time, I was baptizing about, I think it was 8 people every year for about 8 years. Just setting up classes from those newspaper ads. And the thing, I guess what I'd like to suggest is that couple of things. Number one, we need to let people know how to find us. We need to do what we can, personal work, we say, knocking on doors or reaching out to people and trying to contact them. But there's way more people looking than we will ever meet, and we will never find the right ones. So we have to put ourselves out there in a way that when somebody says, I wish somebody could teach me the Bible. It's like in a small town America, as you come into town, there's a billboard with an attorney up there. And nobody calls the attorney until they're ready and they want him. But when they need that attorney, they go back to that billboard and write down the phone number. And then they call. I said, we need to be on that billboard, whatever that particular is. So we use this newspaper that way and got a lot of response from that. What happened, though, is after several years, I quit getting phone calls. Instead of 30 a month, one month I got 99 phone calls. It's hard to keep up with that. But it got down to where I was only getting, like, say, 6 calls a month. So what's wrong? What's wrong? What's changed? And Cammie's the one that figured it out. She said, because she was on the trains more than I was at the time, commuting. And she said, nobody's looking at the newspaper anymore. They're looking at their phone. Everybody on the train was on the phone. Their smartphone, look, and that's where people were getting their information. And that's when I switched to, I quit running the newspaper ad and got serious about website presence, easily accessible with the search engine optimization, finding my keywords. People see my website and then call me with their question. And I had help setting that up because I didn't know anything about any of that. But I went from, say, 2 visits to my website a month to 1,000 website visits to my my site, 1,000 per month. Some months higher than that, some months a little bit lower than that, but about 1,000 a month. And out of that, then I would get phone calls. People would fill out the information form, and I got classes. So I think it's key to finding, where do people go when they're looking for whatever it is they're looking for? And we need to be there in a very visible way.
Well, I know now, I think you mentioned to me that you were spending a few $100s each month on Google search in order to make your Bible study website come up first to those who were in your area. There's a way of doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and so far, I don't know if this is the best or not. I need to find out and improve probably now, but I was using Google Ads. When you do a search on any item, let's say the first 4 or 5 listings will have the word ad by it. And so those people have paid for their site to come up at the top of the list. And sometimes it used to be that they would come up in a column along the side instead of at the top. But either way, the ad appears. It's very brief, very short, and then you pay per click. But we were paying $300. I had some money that was donated to use in the work, and so I used it for this advertising. And so I really spent $300 a month. And I've got a mailing list of 360 people that have given me their personal information that I send them a newsletter now. And out of that, those people call me for Bible studies or ask me questions. So again, now the website, Paul and Barnabas, and we see those first century saints, they were always in the marketplace, right? So we need to go to the marketplace. So what you figure out where the marketplace is in your community. And it's not the yellow pages anymore. Used to, all you did is put your name in the yellow pages and people are going to find you. But that's not it anymore. So.
Well, how else do you try to keep your name before the people to make yourself available?
That's really the main thing that I've done recently. Now, the last few years, it's mainly been by the web presence. And I've gotten so much response from that that I was not really inclined to look for any more, because I'm barely keeping up with, responding to their emails or their phone calls and setting up the classes. I have about 10 individual classes a week, 8 to 10, and then doing Zoom class in the evenings. So I kind of quit looking for more because I was my plate was full. Talking to you guys, I don't know if this is the best way for you to go about it or not. I believe that you just keep trying whatever media and whatever format you're getting yourself out there until you figure out what's going to work. And I mentioned the billboard a while ago. I think the Lord's people might find which corner and which billboard they can afford and give it a shot for about 6 months and see what happens. You think of the traffic that goes by there, and it takes a while to build some confidence and credibility. But so, I don't know if the newspaper, radio, I think certainly internet is the cheapest and maybe the most effective. But we're going to, right now we're building a new website. It should be ready in about 10 days. A new website for the work here in New Jersey. NYC Bible Teacher was the site for New York, nycbibleteacher.com. And so now Tim and I are putting it together. NJ for New Jersey, NewJerseyBibleStudy.org will be the new site, and we'll promote that site here. But we're in a different kind of community here too. This is more working class, less professional, more working class people here. It's the most densely populated county in America, right here, no church. We're gonna put flyers up in laundromats because there's a lot of laundromat use around here. We're gonna hang a flyer on our fence out in front of our house. So flyers out, we're gonna get on the street and pass out literature. I do want to say this, I haven't personally been a part of this, but in Manhattan, Roger Polanco has connected with some young people that have come to his studies, meetup studies. And the West Harlem Church has baptized, I think it's over 30 people in the last 12 months. Not all of them, but almost all of them are young people, singles in their mid to late 20s. Had baptism this past Sunday, and another gentleman that I'd never met before. And they're on the street looking for contacts, and that's how he's getting the contacts. And it's these are not middle income families. They're just young people who are just out on the street, and there's nothing in their lives. They don't know where they're going, what their purpose is, and most of them aren't interested in the gospel. But you just keep asking, and you find those that are. Now, some communities don't have people on the street in the same way that New York City does. But I just am convinced that there are people all around us who are looking, and we just have to find them, and we certainly have to put ourselves in front of them so they see us when they're looking.
Okay, these members that are out on the streets, are these in communities that are kind of mixed business, residential type situation? A lot of foot traffic in these areas?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And so a lot of these people are just people hanging out. They're just out there. Now, some of the young people that have been converted are have grown up in some traditional denominations, some Pentecostal, and there's a lot of disillusionment with the denominational approach, and dissatisfaction there. I don't spend much time arguing doctrine with people. I just find people who are looking, and they can figure out, often they can figure out when things are not as they ought to be. They're not what's really found in the scriptures.
Well, I know Conyers, Georgia was a much different setting from where you were. How do the prospects differ in those two places?
Not as many, and of course, part of the difference has got to be population density. Mm-hmm. And I don't pretend that if everybody did what we did, they'd have the same numbers. I mean, we're just starting with this high density people. So that's one thing that's very different. Another difference is we were not aggressive in getting ourselves in front of people. I will say one thing that really was effective in Conyers during the last part of our stay there, the church built a new meeting house, and it was on a road that was a pretty busy traveled road between Conyers and the interstate. And so there's a lot of traffic on that road. And we put a sign out that would be clear and obvious along the road so that you could read it coming or going, and had a little bit of information about the church, very little, but then just the space where you can put a message in with letters. You fill in the message with the big plastic letters. And I made a point of changing that every week with 2 different messages, one on one side, one on the other. And I got tired of all the silly little statements. I can't even think of one now. There's 7 days without God makes 1 week. Okay, I didn't use that. Or I only use scripture. I would take, and really only portions of scripture. Typically, they were positive and invitational, but I would mix in some of our more controversial preaching points. Baptism for the remission of sins, for example. I'd mix those in, but they would be occasional, but they would be mixed in with an appeal for the gospel. The Lord is not slack, in his promises like men are, and whatever. But we had a really large growth that came from that exposure there. I think we really hit a nerve there that caught me by surprise. I had people talking to me about, I see your sign out there, man, I like that sign. They never come to church, but it was just noticeable, and it really made an impact. And I think I learned something by that sign. But the church doubled in size during those few years there.
Well, let me ask you another question about your recent evangelism. How did the COVID pandemic affect your outreach? And did you learn any lessons from that caused you to do things differently?
Yeah, I don't know. I can make some observations at least. Obviously, the one-on-one studies were kind of went out the window. At least face-to-face one-on-one studies, and then small group studies. We were doing small group, the Meetup, using the Meetup internet platform, which is pretty effective. And so those meetings stopped. But of course, Zoom came into the picture, and so we've got a Zoom meeting every Tuesday night and every Thursday night for a small group. Last night was a good night. We had 4 non-Christians in our group. A couple of them were brand new. One new convert, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, including me, 4 members of the congregation in the class last night. That's a little bit better numbers than usually, but we've always got a couple, 2 or 3 non-Christians. So the Zoom meeting really jumped into the forefront. I do phone classes where don't fool with Zoom. We just make a phone call, and each of us on our own end of the phone in our own quarters, and have a Bible study over the phone. I've learned that it's amazing how effective that can be. And so we don't need to discount that, even as the COVID protocols are gone. I think Zoom classes will still be useful and effective.
Let me ask you one other thing. How do you involve the members in evangelism? How do you get them involved?
One of the small churches that I've been a part of, they're aware of what's going on, and they join the classes. They typically don't teach or lead the classes, but they will. And even when the meetups were in person, some of the members would come to those classes, and that's really useful for them to be there. I think that by keeping them aware of what we're doing and keeping it in the forefront as a purpose in our work, that this is key, that we're a part of this evangelism. I think for people to be more comfortable talking to the visitors, asking questions. Don't hold back. Oh, they're shy. They don't want to talk to us. They may be shy, but they want somebody to talk to them. And even if they act a little awkward, the key is talk to them a bit, and then if they look more awkward, then give them a break. But I think the warm welcome by multiple people. I had one of my new students who's been in one or two of my classes came to church last Sunday, maybe because it was Easter, but she wanted to come to church with us. And it was a good Sunday. Everybody was in a good mood. And she was overwhelmed by how she was welcomed there, I think. But the thing that made that real, I think, is it's obvious that the group, they love each other. So I think one of the strongest evangelistic tools that a congregation has, besides one or a few people who can teach classes well to people, the right up there next to it is going to be a warm, loving, emotionally open, friendly congregation. I think that is the value of that in evangelism is huge. People are not converted to the church. I think we try to avoid that. Don't come here because we've got a better church or we're a good church. That's not the point. You need to listen to Jesus and follow his instructions. And that's what we're trying to do. But when then they look at the people who are trying to do that, they see joy, they see everybody's happy, they see this welcoming attitude that is anxious to include me, has a powerful effect. And I think the West Harlem Church is doing a great job at that. And this young lady who visited, she was kind of overwhelmed by it. She's very emotional by the end of the services. Of course, having the baptism helped raise the fervor of that, which we go in a back room of the basement, and those who were standing outside had to kind of avoid stepping on the dead pigeon. And it's not a pretty sight where where we worship, that's for sure. But those things kind of fade in the background, and just everybody's happy. And so I think that is the number one support and help that brethren can give to evangelism.
Well, Don, this has been great. This has really been great. Do you have any last thought or exhortation about evangelism to a church?
I think that the church as a congregation, the church needs to figure out how to make ourselves available. And I would pursue every potential media. And I believe we ought to spend more money on advertising. One quick one on that. We did this little ad every week in these commuter papers consistently. And then one day, the New York, not the New York Times, the New York Post, they wanted to interview me and highlight our church in the New York newspaper. I mean, this is, the Post and the New York Daily Post. And so we had a half a page spread with a huge picture. I thought, man, this is really going to blow it wide open. I did not get a single call after that big splash in the newspaper, not one. And so go back to these little ones that we ran every week, that were there every week saying, you need this, where's your life going? You need direction. This little bitty thing, would you like to study the Bible seriously? Don't you wish you knew the Bible? That consistency in that advertising was way more important than the big splash.
Okay, Don, this has been great again. Really appreciate your time. We'll probably be drawing on you as a resource in future. I know I will be. You've been so successful. The Lord has blessed you in your work in evangelism. And thanks for doing this for us today.
Oh, I'm happy to share some things. I hope they're useful. I appreciate the good work you guys are doing and the effort you're putting into improving. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Don.
I got everybody online muted. So we didn't show you this today just to show you the great work that's being done in New York City. The reason for showing you this is to help you and help us all see what we can do here, okay? And Don's an excellent person for evangelism, and he's been doing it for many, many, many years, okay? And he's got a lot of great ideas. And let me share the right screen for these guys. So again, the point is, what can we do here as individuals and as the local congregation? And I'm just kind of going to go back through the highlights of what he said. And it's not going to work. Here we go. And you guys online or any of you speak up as we go through this. So what did Don try? Okay, so he was in New York City. He was in a small town also. He's been preaching for a long time with a major focus on this. So they advertised in the newspaper in New York City, and he was getting 30 calls a month. Of those 30, he was getting about 15 coming to classes, 6 to 8 finish the classes, and then 4 baptisms, okay? Baptized 8 per year for 8 years. So that worked well for a while, but guess what? That quit working. So what did he do? He flipped to the internet. He took on the internet, did what he could do on the internet, and now he's getting, 1,000 hits per month. He's also doing phone calls, Zoom classes. Currently, flyers at laundromats. He's putting a flyer on his fence at his house, passing out literature in the streets of New York. He's going at it from every way he can. He's trying to throw it out there and see what sticks. Okay, so here's what he said. We have to let people know how to find us. And that goes for both the church and the individual. So my life should be letting people know how to find the gospel. So the way I live, who I come in touch with every day, they should know that I go to church. They should know who I am. When they need that lawyer, they should know they can come to me to get what they need, okay? And that goes for the church as well. So here are his quotes. Most are not interested in the gospel, but you keep asking, you keep finding those who are. Most may not need a lawyer, but guess what? When they do, they need to know that you're there for them. That's why you reach out, and that's why when they need you, they come to you. So here, there's people all around us looking. We just have to find them. Okay, keep trying. So keep trying whatever format works. He tried the newspaper. He said, try the billboard, try whatever works. If it doesn't work, move on, do something else. But guess what? We may have to spend money as a church, or even, we can do that individually if we want to do that too, but we got to get the message out there. If we want to reach the lost, we have to get it out there, however that is. It may be free, or it may not. Okay, when it's not effective change, he talked about how that wasn't effective. The newspaper, he saw nobody was reading it, or his wife did, so they flipped a website. Okay, so when you can't take, when you're not getting what you need to flip, and ultimately something's going to work. And then, he talked about he can only handle so much. We need to get there. Right now, I don't think we're getting any or very little. We need to get where we're getting a lot, and we can do that. Big point for me and you, what can we do? Again, put yourself out there. Let your friends and those you touch know who you are and where you come from, and be ready to help them when that time comes. Because during each of our lives, we all have that time. And we just need to wait and let people know that we're there for them when that time comes. Join classes. So as we have these classes, whether it's Meetup, Zoom, for people in the community, some of us need to be there for that. If you can be there, obviously you may not teach it. Steve or JP, if he comes, whoever can teach the class, but just being there helps. People know that you care. Okay, be aware of evangelistic activities, provide a warm welcome. That's here in the building. Okay, what's he say? The strongest tool the congregation has is going to be a warm welcome. People know that you love them, that you care for them, and that we're open and friendly and honest and all that goes along with that. So that's what I got. Any comments or questions?
We got the notes
More
tonight.
minutes.
Very good job. Is the notes online?
We'll post the PowerPoint online, we'll post the recording online, and we'll post the class online. So any comments or questions? And now the master teacher comes in. Joe?
I was just gonna say that a lot of times, me included, I feel like I don't have enough knowledge, to reach out to people. But number one, you do have more knowledge than you think you have. And even if you don't, it's okay to get back to somebody.
Yeah, and that's what he was saying. And we're going to have another interview. We have another one of these recorded that Steve did this week from Temple Terrace, Kerry Keenan. Okay. And in that one, he talks about, we may not think we know enough. Okay. But there are people in the congregation who do. So just because you personally may not have enough information doesn't mean that we can't pull from the 10 preachers in the congregation that do and just kind of be that intermediary to make that happen. Any other questions?
Tim,
Yeah.
it's Gwen. Yeah, I've been on a lot of meetup activities because I'm the host for my Toastmasters Club for meetup. And I've been on lots of Bible classes on Zoom too, from different places around the world. And I think it's a good idea. A lot of these Bible classes are happening like say at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock on a Thursday or on a Tuesday. So I think that instead of, we're kind of locked in on Wednesday. So and at a specific time, that if we want to include more people, we can have more Bible classes on variety of days and different times, maybe for seniors who want to do it earlier in the day, or for somebody who might want to do it at whatever time. But I think we should look at those options of different days and different times online, because that's where people are right now more comfortable with doing this online, and it's something to consider. And also Meetup. There's so many people on Meetup on every kind of subject that just want to get together and discuss things. So I think, as he says, take advantage of those opportunities.
Yep. 100% agree with all that. And I think that's going to come as we go down this path, as we learn more, and as we reach out. We got to be considerate of, we can't think that we have 300 people at this church and therefore we're full. I think we have to change that mindset that, there's a lot of people out there that need the gospel. And we also have to quit looking at people as just people that don't matter. Everybody needs it. The I See Dead People TV show or movie. That's kind of what it is. You go out in the world, these people are lost. And we have to quit looking at them as just people. If you looked at them truly as dead people without Christ, how will that change our perspective? Anyway, any last comments? Time's up. So anybody else? If not, thank you all. Next week, we're going to have JP in here, and we'll all talk to him about what he's doing and what he's thinking. So that'll be next week. Tonight, join the 5 o'clock class because we're having more evangelism talk. 6
6
o'clock.
o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock. So it's going to be great too. It's Embry Hills, and we're going to hear some about what they're doing.
Yeah, Bill will be great to listen to. We've had several conversations with him. I hope you will listen to that.
Yep. Good. Thank you all. Have a great day.